Hi, it's sugar time, and we're here with Sonic the Hedgehog, SatAM, Season 2, Episode 1, Sonic Conversion. The plot. Robotnik has a new virtual reality craft that is supposed to be able to keep up with Sonic. Sonic and Sally spot it, and Sally wants to get back to Knothole, but Sonic sees his Uncle Chuck and tries to go get him. Robotnik sees him and attacks, so Sonic grabs Sally and runs off. Robotnik chases him with his new craft, but he loses Sonic when Sonic uses a power ring. Robotnik complains to Snively that the Shriekbot is supposed to be able to outrun Sonic, and Snively tells him that it will with some more thrust boosters. Then Robotnik gets a little weird on him. Back at Knothole, the Freedom Fighters are trying to de-roboticize Bunny. It seems to work, with Bunny finally having her old body back. Sonic gets excited and decides he needs to get Uncle Chuck to de-roboticize him. But Sally doesn't think they're ready yet. Sonic uses a power ring to get Uncle Chuck to remember himself, then takes him back to Knothole. Unfortunately, the de-roboticization does not work, and they need to get parts to repair it while holding Uncle Chuck in a makeshift prison. The only parts that can fix their de-roboticizer would have to come from Robotnik's actual roboticizer. Sonic goes to Robotropolis and pretends to give up in order to get taken by Robotnik. Robotnik doesn't believe the act for a second, and tells the SWAT bots to put him in the roboticizer. Sonic wreaks havoc on everything, uses some anti-gravity boots to get to the ceiling, and takes out the parts they need. Then they successfully de-roboticize Uncle Chuck. Sonic gets to spend time with his Uncle Chuck again, and Uncle Chuck tells Sonic that they're aware of everything while they're roboticized, but they can't do anything. Then Uncle Chuck helps them with some equipment. But while Sally and Bunny are strategizing who to de-roboticize next, Bunny suddenly reverts to being partially roboticized. Sally realizes that Uncle Chuck is going to revert too. Antoine and Tails are with Uncle Chuck when he turns back, and Uncle Chuck takes them hostage and starts carrying them back to Robotropolis. Sally and Bunny fly on Dulcie to find out where he's going, then they go back to get Sonic. Uncle Chuck uses Antoine and Tails as a bait trap for Sonic, while Sonic and Sally are waiting for a new power ring. When Sonic gets to them, Uncle Chuck has been repairing a hovercraft, and Antoine and Tails try to warn Sonic that Uncle Chuck has set up a trap. Sonic gets trapped in some muck that Uncle Chuck made, and Uncle Chuck grabs Antoine and Tails and takes them away in a hovercraft. Sally and Bunny ride Dulcie to where Sonic is and help him out of the muck. Sonic uses the power ring to help him get to Robotropolis in time to save the others. Sonic convinces Uncle Chuck to fight his programming, and Uncle Chuck manages to regain his mind. Sonic wants to leave with him, but Uncle Chuck decides he should stay in Robotropolis to act as a spy for the Freedom Fighters. He and Sonic pretend to fight before Robotnik sends the Shriekbot after him. Sonic runs off, and Robotnik chases him in the Shriekbot, but Sonic runs through a narrow passage and the Shriekbot gets destroyed. Back at Knothole, they're trying to repair the de-roboticizer. Sonic is upset about losing Uncle Chuck, but Tail reassures him that Uncle Chuck is on their side now, and Sally tells him that now they know that roboticized people can fight it off. Favorite moments.
My hedgehog nerves are shot! I tell you, shot! Shot!
No, please. Something is rotten in Topeka. Wherever that is. Now what are you up to?
I do love that Robotnik does not fall for this at all. He knows better.
It's incredible! And Uncle Chuck made it in less than an hour! He's good, Sugar. Maybe I should take a second look at that man.
Oh my goodness. Bunny is into older men. Discussion. So the first episode of Season 2 is a bit weird. For one, we get updated designs. I always remember Sally having her vest, but oddly, I remember Rotor's older design more. I seem to have a mishmash of how I remember the characters. There's a strange tonal shift that definitely feels like meddling behind the scenes. It's weird because the series gets a much wackier feel to it, but at the same time, the story is still kind of dark. And I like the plot itself, but it's presented in this weird, goofy way compared to earlier. It also feels like they dumbed down Sonic a bit. While Sally and Sonic would argue about stuff before, it never felt like Sonic was stupid or anything. Sonic would problem solve as well. Here, it feels like they're going to make him a bit stupid, and I hope that doesn't carry on too much throughout the rest of the season. So, the whole thing is strange. On one hand, you have this dark plot where they're trying to save Sonic's uncle, and we learn that people who are roboticized are perfectly aware and helpless. On the other hand, even the way things are designed is just a bit sillier. Look at this Shriekbot, and how it has Robotnik's face awkwardly on it. The SWATbot suddenly seemed brighter and more cartoony too. One part that stood out to me was when Robotnik asked Snively what color his heart was. The whole scene of Snively looking into Robotnik's mouth was so weird. It reminded me of Ren and Stimpy. It really doesn't feel like it fits with this Sonic series. Then there's Dulcie. I was trying to remember how Dulcie gets introduced, and this is it. She's just suddenly there and acts like she's always been there. She looks so out of place, and it always felt weird to me, even as a kid, that all the characters are generally based on real animals, and then suddenly there's a dragon. She doesn't really do anything in this episode for me to dislike her, but when Sally and Bunny are flying on her, it did make me wish that they had stolen and refurbished a hovercraft or something instead. That would show them gradually building up their resources so that they could do more. I think it would also have been better if they had an episode to introduce her. Maybe something happens to her people and she's the only one they're able to rescue or something. She would still feel out of place, but it would be better than her appearing out of nowhere. As I mentioned before, I do like the plot itself. It covers some really interesting territory with Uncle Chuck. We also get to see Bunny de-roboticized briefly, and it was a good opportunity to cover that. If we removed Dulce and cut down some repetitive scenes, they could have done more with the Uncle Chuck and Bunny. For example, Sonic uses 2 power rings, and there's also going back and forth through Robotropolis. If all of that was condensed, Bunny could have had more time to mourn the loss of her body and bounce back, and they could have spent more time on Sonic and Uncle Chuck before he fights off the programming. They do build it up a bit by letting us know that people who are roboticized are aware of what's happening, so their mind is still there. Maybe there could have been a scene where Sonic and Uncle Chuck talk more about how it's impossible to fight, but Sonic thinks that he can do it because Uncle Chuck can sometimes break out a bit when he holds a power ring. And he could also just spend more time with them together to build up their relationship and show everyone why Uncle Chuck would fight so hard for Sonic. Then that could be followed up later with Sonic encouraging Uncle Chuck to fight against his programming. More could even be added with all of the Freedom Fighters. The Freedom Fighters aren't exactly Uncle Chuck's friends. They're like kids to him. There's a good reason why he would want to fight hard to protect them, and it would have been a good opportunity to emphasize that. This reminds me a bit of the first episode with Uncle Chuck, in that the ideas and the plot are good, but the execution for a lot of it is a bit off. I also feel like Bunny got cut off a bit. We see her briefly upset when she reverts back, but it would be nice to add a short scene later to show her bouncing back from that and being ready to fight again. Some other little changes are that they really emphasize the power burst when Sonic uses a power ring now, and the effect of Sonic's speed on stuff around him, which I think are nice touches. It gives a lot more oomph to what's happening. So, it's really a mixed bag here. Some good changes, some confusing changes. I guess we'll see where things go from here. And that's it for now. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!